For a different perspective, we turn now to author and non-resident scholar at Georgetown, Richard Kahlenberg. He served as an expert witness for the plaintiffs in both cases and has long made the argument for what he calls the pitfalls of race-based affirmative action. Thanks for being with us. You have described this ruling as a step forward for the country. In what ways?
Well, I think this is a victory for low-income and working-class students of all races. So Harvard and the University of North Carolina currently bring together fairly well-off students, economically well-off students of all races, which is much better than in an all-white, overwhelmingly privileged group. But they don't seek socioeconomic diversity. So 71% of the students at Harvard who are underrepresented minorities, Black, Hispanic, and Native American, come from the richest 1/5 of the Black, Hispanic, and Native American populations nationally. And the white and Asian students are even richer. So you have essentially 15 times as many rich students as low-income students at both Harvard and the University of North Carolina. And what experience in states where affirmative action has been, race-based affirmative action has been banned, suggests is that universities won't just give up on racial diversity. To their credit, they will find new ways to promote racial diversity. And I think that what we will see is that they will do the hard work of recruiting working class students, providing them with financial aid to make sure that the universities remain racially diverse and will become much more economically diverse as a result.
Looking at the data, though, accounting for an applicant's economic status does not work as well to racially diversify a student body as including some form of consideration of race in the admissions process, which is to say that it does not remedy the thing that affirmative action was established to resolve, which is discrimination based on race. So how do you account for that?
Well, I have a different reading of the data. So in the Harvard and the UNC cases, we ran models on what would happen if you stopped using race and instead provided a break to economically disadvantaged students and got rid of some of the unfair preferences for legacy applicants, for children of faculty, children of donors. And you were able to produce robust levels of racial and ethnic diversity, much more economic diversity. And we see in states where affirmative action was discontinued that in 7 of the 10, they were able to get as much Black, Hispanic representation as they had in the past using race. There are a couple of outliers, University of California, Berkeley, UCLA, University of Michigan. But in recent years, UCLA and UC Berkeley have admitted their most diverse classes in 30 years, according to the universities themselves. So the amicus briefs in some cases try to make the case that they hadn't done well. In fact, they've done quite well.
You mentioned legacy admissions. We just heard the president of the University of Michigan say that schools should look at that process. How should colleges and universities rethink this issue of legacy admissions in light of the Supreme Court striking down affirmative action in college admissions policies?
Yes, well, I edited a book back in 2010 called Affirmative Action for the Rich about legacy preferences. I think they're very, very difficult to justify under any circumstances, but especially today after the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling on the use of race, I think it becomes even less defensible to use legacy preferences.
The White House, I'm told, had been preparing for this outcome today, and President Biden today, beyond criticizing the ruling, suggested that schools keep open the door of opportunity, and he offered an alternative path.
What I propose for consideration is a new standard, where colleges take into account the adversity a student has overcome when selecting among qualified applicants. Let's be clear, under this new standard, just as was true under the earlier standard, students first have to be qualified applicants. They need the GPA and test scores to meet the school's standards.
So the president says once that standard is met, adversity should be considered. Is that a suitable alternative in your view?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that President Biden made those remarks. My contention is that a conservative U.S. Supreme Court decision today will paradoxically lead to a set of liberal public policy initiatives that make the system fair, that provide a break to economically disadvantaged students. And the use of race has always been highly controversial in American politics, and the the initiatives that were put forth in a number of states almost always passed, the anti-race-based affirmative action initiatives. By contrast, there is strong public support for giving a preference in admissions to economically disadvantaged students, and also for a number of the other important policies, getting rid of legacy preferences, increasing the number of community college students who transfer. What's important is to make sure that we find ways to reflect the realities of race in this country, the history of racial oppression, by considering things like the wealth of an applicant, because a low wealth applicant who overcomes odds and does well despite the obstacles deserves a leg up. And those will disproportionately be Black and Hispanic students, given the enormous wealth gap by race and ethnicity in America.
Richard Kahlenberg is an author and non-resident scholar at Georgetown University. Thanks so much for your perspectives. We appreciate it.
Thank you.